Don't you guys love recording a 40-minute first impressions video just to scrap it and not use it again? Or just recording that long in general and just never using it? No? Just me? Hey, gamers, it's Golden12 here with my real first impressions video. Long awaited, I'd say, because, well, I should have had it upload already, but, complications, other stuff, it is what it is. Today I just want to talk about Zenless and Zero, and of course, per the title of the thumbnail, I'm calling it Hoyoverse's best game. Potentially, right? Let's do a little asterisk there. There's a lot of potential in this game, and people are gonna love hearing that one. But I'm being serious. Like, the game is good, right? It does have flaws, right? I'm not oblivious, but it's a solid foundation, just with a not so great start for a lot of players, because a lot of players are really into the gotcha element. And one thing I've talked about with a few other people is that it feels less like a gotcha compared to other gotcha games, right? And so I'm gonna talk about the game. It's probably gonna be a long one. I'm not gonna lie. The other one was long too, so it is what it is. But yeah, let's get into it. All right, so I got a list of things that I think are something I should talk about. That's really about it. Nothing too crazy here. But we're just going to run down this list. Hopefully I don't yap too long about this before I get into further explanation of certain things, right? And so, yeah, obviously this is a game made by Hoyoverse, right? And it released on all platforms, blah, blah, blah. You guys get the deal. As for the graphics, art, visuals, all that stuff, aesthetically, I think this is the best game that I've seen in a long time. And I just mean, like, game in general. Like, I love the aesthetic, and the art style and the visuals overall are fantastic, right? The animations of every character are just great, and that's what it is, right? They do a good job for that. I will say, design-wise, though, I don't think the characters, not all of them at least, are that good. There are some characters I like a lot. Of course, I'm going to show a little tier list of what I think is, like, the best character designs I've seen so far. But right now, visually, I think it's fantastic. Everything's great, graphics-wise, style-wise, aesthetic-wise, all good. It's just, for the design of some of the characters, I have found it a bit lacking. It is what it is. There's a lot of people I've seen online that just absolutely hate the design of the characters. That also is what it is. I just thought I'd point that out, because personally, I do quite like it, right? As for the music side of that, right, sound and music, I think the music in this game is fantastic. Honestly, this might be a hot take, but I think it's going to be the best Hoyoverse music there is. I cannot get Ellen Joe's guitar riff out of my head. That is like the best thing I've ever seen. And this is primarily because I am a rock head. I'm a huge rock enjoyer. I'm a metal enjoyer as well. So of course I'm going to have a bias towards this music. Don't get me wrong, I do love other Hoyoverse music, but this one just hits the spot for me perfectly. And so I'm huge on that. And then the overall sounds of it are pretty solid. I will say though, the enemies kind of, at least to me, the sounds just blend in with the environment. The only thing I ever hear is the shing whenever an enemy is about to attack. That's really about it. The character sounds, though, they're pretty solid, right? Every character, makes a certain sound when they move, right? All that stuff that is typical of these games, or at least of Hoyoverse, and I think it's, pretty solid. Alright, now onto the thing people care about the most, the gameplay. The gameplay in this game is actually really good, and it's a lot more in-depth than you may think. There's even hidden combos and, like, button inputs for certain characters. I'm really enjoying the combat. I think it's fantastic. Obviously, there is the thing that I've seen a couple people say, like, the characters all feel the same. They really do not. Like, seriously, they don't. If you've tried any character past the initial set of characters like Ben or Nakamata, they all feel drastically different. Same with Ellen Joe, etc. Especially Sakaku, because again, these slower characters feel drastically different than these super fast characters. Like, I can't emphasize enough how different they feel between each of the characters, even with such a small roster like this, right? I think the main point of contention is that people don't play past the initial, like, 3 or 4 characters, and personally, I think these initial 3 or 4 characters give a bad showing of this game's mechanics, because, one, the game doesn't teach you the hidden mechanics, two, players don't get a good understanding about it because it doesn't tell you the specific role or identity of each character, and three, I just think that initial cast of characters doesn't do a good job at showing it off. Ambi is a decent character overall, however, most people aren't going to know about doing her extra input to get out more daze damage unless they, of course, are paying attention to her core passive, right? Past that, I think Billy overall just has a bad kit and is going to age terribly, and personally, I dislike his gameplay. It doesn't feel good playing as him. I don't know if it's because he's a ranged character, just out of the, like, few that I've played, which has been Grace and Billy, I don't like it. And maybe they're even the only two, like, actually, well, I guess Nicole's range, but you get what I'm saying. And then as for Nicole's a more niche character. I'm kind of iffy on her gameplay. It's solid, but it's not my favorite thing, right? And there hasn't been a reason for me to use the input, but also I didn't even know about the input until later. I have seen a lot of people use the input in smart ways to like delay her orb to get more damage out, stuff like that. So there is some complexity here in terms of actual combat mechanics. You just have to actually learn it. However, at the same time, you aren't given the opportunity to even make use of it until later in the game. And like I said with myself, there's a mechanic called the perfect assist mechanic that you use by pressing space on PC, and it will swap your character, but you do this during an attack to do a perfect assist, right? Whether it be a dodge or parry. I didn't even use this mechanic until I was like past level 26, to be honest with you, because the enemies weren't strong enough, and I also just wasn't thinking about using it. But once I encountered these harder enemies, the armored ones and the bosses, I realized that if I wanted to be optimal and clear it fast, and not have any problems, or just, not get hit or die, because there actually have been a couple points where I've died with characters, I need to use perfect assist. And so I've started mastering perfect assist, and so I've been, weaving it into my gameplay, getting a lot of stunts off with it, and actually using the mechanic well, and just, popping off, right? And so I found it really fun and satisfying. Again, the perfect assist parry, personally, is one of the most satisfying things in this game. There is a part to it to where there's a certain amount you can actually tank from a hit, right? I found this out while playing, but you can only take so many hits per parry before you're able to, or before you're unable to do the perfect assist follow-up, right? Which is actually a separate move with a separate animation for these characters, which is kind of crazy to me. That and I don't know if that's true for all characters, but it's kind of crazy to me that there's a lot of animation there that you don't see too often because of the nature of the mechanic, right? And so generally, I think it's really cool, especially once you master it. It's just, again, starting out, you're not given the opportunity for it, which leads me into difficulty. The difficulty of this game, even on challenge mode, I don't think is that hard for chapter 1. Past chapter 1, once you get past level 25, there's a difficulty spike. The enemies become a lot stronger in terms of HP and the damage they deal. There was one encounter I found in one of the modes I was doing where they get an enhancement to where the enemy actually two-shots you. If you get hit once, your health goes all the way down. They were doing over 4k damage per hit. It actually put my characters to 1 when I got hit, and my AMB as my stunner died. And so, in terms of overall difficulty, at the start, it's not hard. It's not hard for quite a bit. Like, I'd say at least like 12 hours, it probably won't be hard. But once you get to that level 25 plus mark, the game unlocks these harder difficulties via, the other types of missions and actual challenge mode for the story. Now, you can unlock the challenge mode, I believe, a bit earlier for chapter 1, but there is a challenge mode to unlock for both chapter 2 and 1, and I would presume chapter 3, but I haven't made the chapter 3, and I'm honestly not sure if anybody else has, if they've been going at normal pace. I'm sure there's some grinders out there that have gone there, but there's challenge modes in here that you can unlock under the story section for the story missions, and they are actually pretty tough. Now, I have S ranked, well, actually no, I'm looking at it right now. I've only A ranked 2 of them, right? But that just goes to tell you that, like, even if I'm playing like well, it's still hard for me to get the max score. And as I've been saying, the enemies do get significantly tougher once you enter these harder contents, right? Like the end game, the weekly boss I don't think is all that tough, but then again, I'm becoming really good at combat, so that's just from me. But 100% there is a difficulty spike, and these modes do get harder, and they get stricter requirements for their timings and so on. Like Shibiri defense, I've only pushed up to level 4. It does get significantly harder, and I believe at level 7 is whenever you start needing 2 teams for the combat. So again, the combat I do think is really good. The difficulty, it's kind of a weird fluctuation because I feel like it's pretty slow and steady and low at the early game, but then it spikes up at like 25 plus whenever you unlock all the harder content fully. Because like at 26 is when you can actually unlock disk drives, which is quite far, I would say. But they are in comparison to other games more closer within like power bands for these disk drives, right? Like they have a much different skew for power for disk drives, and so you probably won't feel it nearly as much as some of the other games, but they do still make a significant impact. And so, at least for me personally, I didn't think I needed them, but they do obviously help out for these hard contents. But it's just important to note that, like, you don't unlock all that stuff that you can even gear your characters for until after you've unlocked some of the hard content, right? So I just thought I wanted to point that out. Like, it does get significantly harder. There are different types of combat missions I unlock too, like rallies and specifically challenge combat missions. So there are ones that are hard, right? Like, don't get me wrong, a lot of people won't experience it because they probably won't get this far in the game, and that's one of the other things I gotta mention is that there is a significant filter for the game via the story and other missions that people won't go through to experience to even find this hard content, right? The game sort of filters them out from the story yapping and other various means like the TV sections. So even though like there is really good content, actually like more difficult content later on, a lot of people aren't getting to that point, right? And sorry about that Discord ping, but still, a lot of people aren't getting to that point, which is kind of unfortunate because it does actually make a significant change in the game overall, especially because you do get more combat to do later on in the game, right? There's a bunch of combat missions that unlock for you and commissions and stuff like that that players aren't even getting to because they're getting filtered out so hard, via other systems, right? And I'll talk about that more later, but like new game experience is not the best. Right, continuing on with gameplay, I'm not sure if I mentioned like how they feel. They feel good. Yeah, on PC it feels good. Haven't played a controller yet. I might later, but yeah, they feel pretty good. Except that it is kind of hard to do some inputs like Nicole's special input. Game modes, right? Let me talk about game modes. There's actually more game modes than people realize because they don't unlock all of them until they're like level 27 or something. Yeah, you see why I mentioned the new player experience is kind of whack because people don't even see all the modes unlocked until later on. But once you do get further onto the game, you'll start, being able to do your dailies. Of course, that happens actually pretty early, but then you'll unlock all the modes. So eventually at like level 26, 7 or whatever it is, I don't remember honestly, you unlock the mode for grinding artifact, this game's equivalent of artifacts. Of course, before then you will have locked the additional mode for what is the basically the equivalent of enemy boss materials, but like it's not boss materials in a sense because you use a rank up tickets or like tokens in this game. These are for your actual core passives that increase the base stats, which is almost the equivalent of ascension stats in like Genshin or Honkai Star Rail. And so they've got a bit of a different system in that regard. You're going to be farming for that instead. And it's not too bad where it is. I believe the rates go up as you go up higher in level. But of course, I've yet to unlock that since I'm realistically at like the halfway ranking point in terms of like investment into a character. I can't even unlock level like 60 characters until much later on. So I'll have to, obviously figure that out once I get there. But right now, those are like, your basic grind modes. Of course, you have your in-game modes. So you've got the actual weekly boss fight, which surprisingly doesn't cost resin. There's only 2 of them I have here. I believe there is a third one. I just don't have it unlocked because you have to go and complete like chapter 3. So this is kind of annoying personally because you have to complete the chapters to unlock the boss, but it does make sense at the same time because of course you have to actually, encounter it, figure it out. In that first mission you do that people, typically don't pay attention to, like the second one, it's sort of teaching you the mechanics. So I just thought I'd point that out. But like, I do like the weekly bosses. It's just difficulty wise, at least where I'm at, for me personally, it's not the hardest thing. And again, unlocking them is a bit cringe. Of course, you have Hollow Zero, which is your, like sim universe mode. I've unlocked 3 of the stages so far. This mode's really fun. I don't like the newest one because it's got like a debt system for how it, gives you charges and whatnot. And so that's kind of annoying, but they each have their own sort of like, way to go about it, right? And so I think it's really cool. It's a fun mode. This mode does utilize the TVs a lot, but I think it's used better here because again, it is roguelike. And so it's you going around selecting your buffs, planning things out strategically. And like what I don't know if I mentioned in my, I mentioned this in the original one, but the TV system is like supposed to be a strategic way to move around the world effectively, right? And it works well here for that reason because you're selecting your buffs, etc. You're having to be careful where you move. And so it's much more interesting here versus it taking you out of the experience elsewhere, right? And then of course you have sheer defense, which is your, spiral based tower mode, etc. Right? This mode's pretty cool. It gives you some good rewards, right? This is where the pull income goes up a lot. Again, once you unlock these modes, the pull income you get goes up a lot. I've already have gotten like an extra 2 multis, or more. Actually, yeah, it's been more than 2 multis just for like unlocking the mode. So like they give you a good amount of pulls, for these modes. For the first time clear bonus. I don't know how it's going to be on repeat clears, but we'll definitely see once we get the weekly refresher rewards, because one of the main things we don't know right now, past the in-game content up to a certain point, is we don't know what the weekly rewards are going to be like. All right, we still haven't seen the resets. We don't know like if the missions are going to change, etc. So we've still yet to see that. But there's a couple modes that get unlocked, right? In-game modes that get unlocked once you get further in. It's just, of course, you don't even see weekly bosses until you are at decently high level, right? Like I'm almost level 30 at time of recording, and recently I actually unlocked weekly bosses. So it's like again, it's actually it's compounded worse because the quest, like you get it from some like random quest that you pick up. The game doesn't even like fully tell you to go there. It does tell you to go there and talk to the person, but like it almost feels random. I could just be wrong on this, but it's kind of confusing to actually like unlocking some of this stuff. So yeah, that can be a negative for some people. I thought I'd just point that out. All right, on to the story, a segment that people talk a lot about because there's a lot to talk about, right? It is what it is. Story-wise, I think chapter 1 is good. I'm not a huge fan of chapter 2. The main reason is because I think the issues for the TVs are worse in chapter 2. For those people that have those issues, that is unfortunate to hear. And also story-wise, I don't think chapter 2 is as compelling. Towards the end of chapter 2, there are some really good character moments that are actually really well, but I don't think the rest of it does enough to build up to that point, right? At the end of chapter 2, of course, I'm not gonna spoil it. Just telling you that there is some really strong character moments. It pushes the characters to their sort of limit, but it doesn't flesh it out enough, and it doesn't build up to that point enough, right? Because part of it happens off screen, which I think is kind of unfortunate, but it is what it is, right? I do think they could do better in terms of writing perspective. I have yet to play chapter 3, so we'll see. I'm currently working on the Nekomata storyline, which is, more comical in that regard. But yeah, again, story overall, it's pretty good, but not anything too crazy. I honestly don't think it's like slice of life like people are saying. At least chapter 1 has a, clear structure, like act like it's following, a certain point, and it's building up the core plot of the game. And then chapter 2 is sort of like a side story because you are commissioned out to somebody else. Like chapter 1, it's Nicole's gang and introducing you to the main systems and the, initial events of the world. Chapter 2 is, oh, you're commissioned off somewhere else to help somebody else, right? And so I can see where, comments like, oh, it's slice of life like happen because it's, different individualized stories. But I think going forward, we're going to have certain chapters that release where it's continuing on the main story that we have with Fairy, the AI, and so on. And then other chapters where it's going to be, stuff like Bellabog Heavy Industries, where we, again, go and build onto the world of Zenless elsewhere. So that's how I think it's going to be. Overall, I do think the story is pretty solid. It's just definitely, as I've said in like my previous video, the TVs do take people out of it because, again, certain key moments that you would hopefully happen in a cutscene or while you're fighting or something like that, like in gameplay, happen in the TV mode instead. And that definitely is going to be a negative aspect for a lot of people. Overall, I will say, though, the characters themselves are pretty good. I do enjoy the characters, right? Especially characters like Nekomata, how they make her, cat-like. And it turns out, this will be a spoiler, but she's actually like acting, and it's kind of funny. But I do really enjoy Nekomata's character, at least, right? And a couple other ones. I think they're pretty solid. All right, I'm not gonna lie. Somebody sent me a clip mid-recording. That's something called like a DP assist, where it's like a assist and dodge attack at the exact same time with two separate characters. That's really sick. But that just goes to tell you what I was saying. It's like the combat does open up more once you learn more about the game, and again, there is more to the combat, and you have more ways to experience that further on in the game, right? I just thought I'd point that out there. I don't want to get too off track. This video is gonna get too long if I do. All right, now quick note on performance. I did have a couple performance issues in the first couple of days. I haven't had it in the past 2 days, as far as I can remember. But on day 1, there was a crash that happened live on stream where the game just crashed, right? And then past that on day 2 and 3, which is weird, it's happened once on like each day. But on day 2 and 3, the game, while I had it open in the background while I was doing other stuff, ended up crashing, which is really weird. Not sure why that is, but I haven't had it since then. So hopefully the performance gets better. I know on mobile specifically, there was a lot of performance issues. Some devices straight up just got a message saying cannot support on this device, right? Which is unfortunate, even though it like met the minimum requirements. And then also I've seen a bug on mobile where it's just a black screen, like the entire map doesn't load in. And so it just becomes unplayable at that point, which sucks, and it should be playable. And then, of course, I'll mention the load times once. For me on PC with SSD, it has not been bad at all. It's been a couple seconds. Although I have seen people complain about the load times and like what I think it's shader compiling whenever you're first loading into the game and other stuff. So yeah, that I will say is a little bit slow. But this can of course go up whenever Hoyo optimizes the game a bit more. It does need some help in that regard, but it's not unplayable I would say. No idea how it is on PlayStation. That's going to be up to the PlayStation players to figure that one out. All right, now before I get into some like criticisms and negatives about that, because again, this has been mostly positive, and I'm trying to keep this shorter than the last one, but it's already gone pretty long. Uh, I will say overall, I like the game. I enjoy everything about it. It's really fun to play. The aesthetic is really good, and this game has a lot of potential. I think it could be great, and I think it can be Hoyoverse's best game. But right now, Star Rail has been going on for a while, and it's been ran very well. They've been making the right choices of Star Rail, in my opinion. It's just better in that regard, as well as there's more story for people to consume, and there's nothing like taking you out of it as much, right? There's a lot Star Rail has to offer in terms of like a gotcha experience that I think it does better than ZZZ, but ZZZ is still in its first week and it's receiving a lot of, I think, unjustified hate. And so it'll remain to be seen how Hoyoverse handles this game going forward. But right now, my main concern with the game is content, right? Same thing I had with Wuwa is the content, right? I need to see the events in this game, how they are ran, before I can give an overall thoughts on the game as a whole. Because the main thing here is that with other Hoyoverse games, the events aren't that good, right? Star Rail's events, most of them are pretty solid, but there's a lot of ones that are not good. And then if we go further back to Genshin, most of Genshin's events are just bad. I need to see how they run events in Zenless. That's my main concern, because events are going to be the primary content for anybody who's in the end game, right? Because they'll have cleared everything else. What they have left will the events. So hoping this game has good events, and that's my main concern for the game, is the events. And then there's also one more thing, which is just a me thing. I would prefer less lolly characters. I'm not a huge fan of all like the fact that like half the cast is little girls. This is definitely just a me thing. I know there are a lot of people that enjoy that archetype of characters. I'm not. I would prefer more like men characters like Vaughn. Now, Vaughn, listen, I'm not a furry, but Vaughn is just cool, all right? I'd prefer more characters like that, or more characters like Ellen, Joe, or My Abby, right? I want the characters to be cool, and that's the number one thing, right? Just make them cool. That's really it. Yeah, I know that crazy thing to say, make the characters cool. That's really all it is. I don't think the current cast does that good of a job at that personally, but yeah, that's just here nor there. All right, now that I've straight glazed this game for 26 minutes, let's get into the negative, starting with the new player experience. ZZZ's new player experience is not good for a lot of people who are going in with a hater mentality, are not trying to give the game a decent shot. Of course, you're completely justified for not liking the game if you are playing it for X number of hours and are just not vibing with it, totally. But I'm telling you, it does get better the further you go, right? The main issue here is with that people have is with the TVs, right? It does take you out of the experience for the story, and it can get definitely annoying. I didn't think it was that bad. In fact, I actually liked the TVs. However, for the story segments, it does, negatively impact it for most people. So that is worth mentioning. Again, I think it works well instead of Hollow Zero, and I do like it for the explore missions. Those are pretty solid, but specifically for, the rest of the content, it does, hamper it in some way. And because it takes so long to actually get to like where I am, it's going to filter out a lot of people. And I think that's bad for the game overall, right? Despite like me liking, a lot of these aspects of the game, I do think filtering out players like that is just bad for the game overall. And it's just, more and more pushing on this hate bandwagon the game has, but the game is actually really good, right? And before I continue, I probably should have said this in like the, glazing section, or maybe it's better to put it here, but I do think overall this game is a solid 7 out of 10. Generally, like everything's good, it's smooth, it's fun. Again, the new player experience is just not that good, but it is like a 7 out of 10. And in comparison, I'd put Star Rail at like 8 or 9 out of 10, or maybe even a 10 out of 10 actually, because like Star Rail's a gacha experience is one of the best gachas I've played. It's really nice, right? So yeah, there's a long way to go for ZZZ, but I do think it can improve. But more negative things besides the filtering of the early game and how it's it's like too easy. It's deceptively easy because again, as I've been saying throughout this, it does pick up. It does become more difficult. There are challenges that like will one-shot your characters even, and it gets pretty crazy. Another downside is like, why is the UI the way it is? So like, I like the UI, but there are a lot of negatives to it. So things I don't understand. So people have criticized the UI of not making sense, or you can't access everything. You can access everything, but not all of it makes sense if you follow my drift. So like, for example, whenever you're in the overworld, the UI, right? You've got all your different menus up here. You know, it's just like your other games where you've got your quick access buttons to a specific input. It is what it is, right? But then you've got this thing where you hold F and you need to like rotate your mouse, which is so weird. Like I need to actually spin the mouse. I can't move it directly. If I move it directly left to right, it just goes the wrong way. Like, or it just doesn't move at all. I have to actually like rotate it around the sphere. Why is this a thing? Why is it? And like clearly this works for controller because theirs is in a 360 angle. But why is it on PC? The like overworld controls are just straight up like bad. Like what? Why is this a menu here? This should really just be a. And first off, tab is to hide and like unhide the thing, which is fine, I guess. But what it really should be is you press tab to like pull up a wheel to then, you know, move it in that direction and then select it. Not like whatever this is where I have to like circle it around to go to the other side. It feels so bad and it's so weird. And then again, some of the UI I think is pretty cluttered. And this is a conflict between the game's, you know, overall aesthetic and UI. I do love the aesthetic, and I do think the UI looks really good, but not all of it functions really well. This is something that I thought was the opposite in Wuwa, is that in like Wuwa, the UI functions really well, but visually it's terrible, right? And because this, it's like a downgrade version of Genshin, and you know, maybe not everybody's gonna understand that, especially if they're new to the game, but the UI in this game visually looks great. It just doesn't function the best. So like certain things you would think would take you somewhere don't always, but like you can of course access your page here. It'd be great. But like you pop the UI and you look down here and you're just like, well, what is this? Well, it's like, oh, signal search is here, but it's also here up here. It's like, well, that does make sense. But now you've got it to where it's spaced out. So if you look at the top, right, it's got signal search, a battle pass, your commissions, your events tab, and then your character tab, which I honestly don't know why the character tab is even there. It's normally not there, at least on PC. You can just press C and it opens up your characters. The other games don't have that, but it's now reversed here. So you've got the compendium on the other side of the agents tab, and it's also spread out more. I don't know why it's not ordered the same way, or why the store is not even like on the right. Like the store being in between that is kind of confusing. And I have heard comments where it's like people are like, oh, I forget where the UI is. Now, like, granted, I do like having the character in the middle. I know people have criticized this aspect as well for like the dynamic wallpaper. I just think it's the placement of everything doesn't make sense. Like, why is there a scrolling events tab here? Just have it be a static page. Like, I understand the film reel thing, but just have it not move, make it wider, and like list out the current active events. I don't know why it is like this. I think this is one of the moments where it's like this design over aesthetic, right? Because I just think it's kind of like dumb that this just keeps scrolling for no reason. Especially again with the placements down here, having the storage like this. Like, sure, this looks fine individually, but having recycle button here with the filter here, and the filter doesn't even filter everything out. There's actually, that's another thing. The character filter doesn't have type filtering. It only has status filtering. So you've got your status, like your element, right? And then you have your faction. You can't filter by type of character for some reason. I don't know why that is. They need to add that. I don't know who was like, oh yeah, let's release the game with like 5 different types of characters and then not have a filter for, you know, when we have like 26 of the same type of character, right? I really don't know who thought that was. Secondly, the mission like UI here. So first off, again, we can talk about how it's just one long bar here, right? The UI mission element, first, it takes you into this menu where it's like, oh, the time of day, which, look, the daytime system is a whole other thing we can talk about. I'm not crazy about it. I know Persona fans are probably used to this sort of thing, but it takes you to this mission here. But then you're also getting this notification bar here where you do get a significant portion of your request. And you can even filter for the ones that actually matter. But at that point, why did they develop all of these? Like, look, I love the art, right? Oh, what the yo, I want this pizza. I love the art. I think it's great. I do think it's cool that they did make all this, right? And they've clearly put a lot of work into it. But here's the one thing. As a game developer, like as me, like I'm becoming a game developer, I can only think about how many people are just going to completely ignore this aspect of the game and why I don't think it was worth developing this. There's really cool things in this game that people are just going to completely ignore or just not even interact with. And this is one of them. So I feel like their time could have been better spent elsewhere, personally, right? Again, it's cool, but like really not necessary. Is it a pregnancy? Anyways, and then of course you've got the level menu, which again, for whatever reason, the level menu is underneath the mission level like menu for some reason. I don't know why this is even here. This does not make any sense. I know the other games have a vendor you can go talk to, which, granted, having this level menu accessible anywhere is nice, but why is it not just in the player menu? Like, why is it under missions? Like, is that not confusing for anybody else? I don't know why that's there, but I guess the reason is because lore-wise, it's tied to your missions, right? Because you're on like the internet web, and of course, so like put it next to the internet web where you get your missions. But for me, that just seems like a little crazy. I don't know, but that's besides the point. Secondly, same thing with achievements. The achievements, having a claim all button, but it doesn't claim all in a whole category is annoying. It claims it per tab here. Like, who thought of that? If I want to claim all, I want to claim all, not just per tab. Like, what? That's insane. As well as, again, achievements, they probably shouldn't be placed here. You should probably put achievements next to your account level, and put it in the same menu as your account, right? I, again, I don't know who made these design elements and why they're so cluttered, but like, there's a lot that could be changed here that I think would just function better, and that's one of the main things, right? Of course, you've got the like 5 different ways to access the daily commissions thing, and another thing, there's a way like whenever you click on something in inventories to take you to it, it will pull you to the training tab, even though training tab is not the correct spot for everything. I don't know why that is. They need to fix that one too. That's an issue there. The whole DMs thing. What is the like? I understand. Okay, there's another lore thing, but like, really, they could just say like, give a better indicator that there's a mission because it's the same indicator as like the story one, and so it's hard to tell, and you just sort of spam through dialogue. The main thing I have to say with like these like text is that they should just let us skip them. Let us skip them and claim the mission. I don't want to sit here for 5 minutes reading the text because some of these guys be yapping and taking a minute to read out text. Like, look at Soldier 11 here. You got to go through all this text before you can respond and even receive the message, right? So, like, let us just skip the messages, please. Like, there's no point in having people read them out, or at least click through it, because you just have to wait for them to type it out. It gets really annoying, especially if you're somebody who's caring more about the gacha side, not so much the story, and or just don't even want to read this like me. I really think you should just let us skip that. So that's another thing there. Again, your options menu, I don't know what happened to the motion blur thing. That's gone. That used to be there, right? Oh, another huge thing that bothers me. The camera. I can't significantly zoom out or zoom in. Why? Why? And this is another thing with the TV mode. The TV mode locks you into a certain camera's perspective. Let me zoom all the way out. I don't know why you can't zoom all the way out with the TV. You can zoom in a little bit, but you can't zoom out all the way. Like, it's hard. It's so small a range. You need to let me zoom out more with the TVs. That gets really annoying. I'm trying to survey the area, figure out my path, right? That's like the idea of the TVs. So why am I so zoomed in whenever I'm in TV mode? That is one thing that actually bothers me, and I think makes the TV mode worse for a lot of people, but they don't even realize it. Like, the TV mode needs to have a change functionally, because it's bad. And then also on mobile, you have to like individually tap the squares, and I know that's gonna suck and filter even more people out. So like, they gotta allow you to zoom out and then tap across the board to go over to that point on the board. Again, I don't know who didn't think about this over at Hoyoverse, because normally they do think about stuff like this, but they gotta rework that. They gotta make it actually function better. I don't know whose idea that was. But then, yeah, obviously, you've got your settings over here, which this is another one of those OCD things that throw me off. Why is settings right here next to the more option where you get everything else, where it's like, oh, okay, that's the wrong one I clicked on. That's the one that takes you out of the game. But you have your redemption code, your logout, your unstuck button, your feedback notices, mail, proxy network, etc., right? Why is this in here? Like, if we're being real, like, I understand the handbook for one thing, putting it next to like the VR training. Like, these two make sense, but they're effectively the same thing. So why couldn't they just put like, I mean, that's just a criticism of me personally. Like, they could just put all both of those together. But having like 2 buttons that effectively do nothing here with the more section, they just take you out of the game into like their community post, is kind of dumb. And then also having the mail underneath a sub menu. Like, why is the mail a sub menu. Wouldn't you want the mail to be immediately accessible via a button and not a sub menu? I mean, that's just something that I think is weird. Now, yeah, okay, you can't even quick access it like in Wuwa. You can just press N. And I know I'm referring to a lot of other games here, but it's hard to like compare, right? But yeah, I don't know why this is a sub menu. Again, like there's ways to improve the UI here, especially this screen as a whole. And I don't know why they did not consider any of that, or why they even split everything up like that. Like, here's the thing. Remove achievements, put it next to your character, put it in that menu, right? Allow us to skip DMs, right? Options. Honestly, I don't even know what to say about options, but regardless, you get what I'm saying. You can put like store on the right, signal search, your battle pass, your agents, and then sure, your storage. But then take this mission menu, yeah, leave it there too. Move achievements up, right? Move the compendium up as well. Again, I don't know why these are down here. I mean, this one's a personal preference, but like again, the rest of these can be changed. That or allow us to click on the character to enter character menu. No, actually, that'd be a bad idea. Ignore me on that part. But you guys get what I'm saying. Like, there are improvements to the UI that can change here. Again, this more section doesn't need to realistically exist or even do what it needs to do. We can remove both the community and strategic function. To be honest with you, I understand their intended purpose, but I don't think they need to be here. VR and proxy handbook can be combined. You can move mail outside of here to be a default function. So like this menu realistically should just be your strategic and then like your VR training and then log out, right? Redemption code should also be in the character menu like their other games. I'm not sure why this isn't here. I understand having it as a separate button, but if you do that, why don't you also put it at the top bar? Why don't you put character level achievements redemption code? Why don't you do that? I really don't know why they changed their like idea there for this game in particular. And then, you know, so on. I can talk about that all day in little nuances, right? And so the UI isn't the best. It's solid. It looks good visually, but it doesn't function the best. There's a lot of quality of life they can fix there. Okay, this video is getting already way too damn long. I probably haven't addressed all the issues. Gameplay good. Yada. I don't know about pool income. We'll have to see how that is. You know. Oh my god. Yeah, I'll be honest. Mostly good things. 7 out of 10 game. I don't have much more to say, to be honest with you. I think it's good. I do think it's worth trying out. I do think it's worth trying to push it. But of course, if you don't like the initial experience, you're totally right in your opinion to not like the game and so on. I'm not going to go here and say like the new player experience is, you know, groundbreaking, because it's not. It is worse than, you know, other games of its genre in the gacha space, right? Because at least those allow you to unlock and get the illusion of having access to everything earlier, right? This game quite literally hides a lot of stuff from you, like certain character interactions that are actually just straight up not there until you interact with them. Like, I found out that you have a cat level up system. Yeah, I'm being serious. There is a cat level up system in this game under your like companion menu, which, here's the thing, I don't even know where it is. So this just goes to tell you like how confusing some of the UI elements are, because like I don't even know where the friendship menu is at, right? Like I couldn't, for the life of you, I couldn't tell you where it is, because I don't even know how to access it, right? So like it doesn't even, it doesn't make sense. It actually does not make sense. You guys see the problem with this UI? Like it is like, I don't hate it, mind you, but so much of it does not make sense for a lot of the game. Like I'm actually actively trying to find where the menu is for like the cat interactable, and I cannot find it. I don't look. I'm trying. Okay, I really wish I could just click on a button and find it, but I swear they're just missing certain elements that would make it totally fine, but I can't even find it. But you get what I'm saying. It's like, it's not all bad. Overall, the game is good. I apologize for making this be a 40-minute video again. I really don't know how I achieved that, but I am a yapper, you know, Yap Demon 12. Yeah, I'm gonna end it here. If you have any questions, don't forget to ask me down below. I think I covered everything pretty well. In my original video, I will say I definitely went more into detail over certain aspects, but my thoughts have changed. And yeah, the biggest downside of this game is the filtering that the TVs do in the new player experience. I do think it's way too long to unlock a lot of these things, and players don't get a reasonable sense of trying to do it, or even a reasonable way to engage with the combat because they're not faced with a hard challenge early on, right? The other games don't necessarily need this because of the nature of them, but at least in Star Rail, right, you're not like filtered out. Like you unlock the stuff really fast for like grinding resin, so you can upgrade your characters, and you're given a pretty like decent path to unlock everything, and you relatively unlock the in-game modes early, I would say, in comparison to like this game. So yeah, again, oh my god, it's 40 minutes long. You know what, I'm gonna end it here. Again, ask any questions down below. I do think it's worth playing this game. I do think it's worth investing your time into. It's very fun, but of course, if you don't like it, you don't like it. It is what it is. That being said, I'm going to limit 12. Like if you dislike dislike if you dislike it. Yeah, I'm out. Sorry for wasting 40 minutes of your time, I guess.